in high definition. This is Central Coast News right now.
Central Coast News understands how important political coverage is to our viewers.
That's right. For the past 2 years, our entire news team built on the foundation that won us the Cronkite in 2010, giving the viewer a voice. We listened to our viewers and gave them what they wanted most: the truth.
Central Coast News knows it's not about us, it's about the viewer. We give them the chance to question candidates in debates, forums, and online. And all candidates got the chance to deliver their message directly to the viewer.
This is Central Coast News Campaign 2012.
I'm Assemblymember Bill Munning, and I want to thank Central Coast News for this opportunity to discuss my candidacy for the new 17th Senate District seat.
So we created our own ballot, changing all of the names from the previous election and leaving the designations to see if it would make a difference in how you vote.
We got whooped. No doubt about it. We got whooped big time.
The Republican Party somewhat on life support.
I'm double dipping is the term.
Now, one of your local lawmakers here in Sacramento is trying to stop the double dip for a second year in a row.
Look, I don't fault anybody who takes advantage of the existing system. The system not only allows it, the system encourages it.
Take a look. Not only will you be voting for the presidential race, you'll also be voting for city and county races and measures, and not to mention all 11 statewide propositions, and some of you may have a hard time finishing it.
2, 3, 4, 21. That's less than 30 seconds per ballot item, people.
They want a resignation of the board.
I would say that given our electoral process and the fact that we cycle in and out, they'll have a golden opportunity when we come up for re-election.
So what's the fear, though?
Fear of
consolidation.
Well, one of the fears I have with consolidation is loss of local control.
What do you call AB 109?
I would call it the governor's get back on the county. That's what I'd call it.
This isn't generated at public safety. It's generated for budgetary reasons because the state is broke.
It's Jeff Budd's job to watch over the Monterey County Jail. These days, it's pretty packed.
Last night I had 1,000 people in custody, and I'm only board rated for 829 beds.
Budd says the overcrowding is expected to become an even more serious problem come October 1st when AB 109 takes effect. And where the state calls non-serious, non-violent, and non-sexual criminals get sentenced to will start to change.
Anybody with 3 years or less will wind up staying here as opposed to going to state prison.
County leaders estimate it will mean approximately 30 more mandatory inmates a month, adding to already crowded quarters. And Budd believes it will likely mean the early release of less serious offenders.
I just don't have room.
The weight of possibly choosing who will get an early pass out of lockup makes him cringe.
Every time when you will have to let somebody out, what do you think is going to run through your head?
It's not going to run through my head, it's going to run through my stomach. The acid content will rise significantly because I wonder sometimes if we pick the right guy to let out. Will he hurt somebody while he's out? Hopefully no.
If the new general manager comes in, as good as he might be, he's going to be tainted by that culture. And so we're going to be back to where we've started.
Back where they started was in the 70s when the special district was established by voters. But it wasn't until last December that some of those same voters found out where a big chunk of their property tax dollars were going. For the last 12 years, Joe D'Onofrio managed 500 square miles and 16 employees. And by the time he left, he was making $375,000, benefits included. To give you some perspective, Yosemite's National Park Superintendent oversees 1,200 square miles of land and 450 employees. He is making $185,000, benefits included.
We're not talking about IBM. We're talking about a public agency.
Peter Baird says he never considered himself an activist, but when he heard how much D'Onofrio was making, he figured he would show up to a board meeting, voice his concerns, write a letter to the editor, and go on with his life. But that turned out to be just the beginning.
Once I got back to the office, I had about 24 messages and voicemails from people who shared the same view. I don't think the public had an idea of the amount of laxness and the amount of benefits that were given to one individual.
And when he started asking questions of the board, he says they weren't giving answers.
And in fact, the board has instituted a policy of not speaking to any residents. The board attorney had told the board members not to have any conversation with the residents.
I was told the same thing when I requested an interview with the president and D'Onofrio back in December. It wasn't until D'Onofrio retired and the new general manager, Jim Silentek, was hired that I got the interview with the new board of directors president, Jennifer Laguerre-Felguth. She said she couldn't speak till now because she wasn't board president then. Now that she is talking, she said all employee contracts are public.
Each time a new contract amendment was negotiated, that information was public. It was announced at public meetings. At no time did any member of the public come forward with any criticism or complaint or question. This has all been out there as public information, so this is not a big secret.
But Baird says if it's there, the board doesn't want you to find it.
Why is it necessary for me or other citizens to have to invoke the Public Records Act in order to get any information? And furthermore, why does the district then want to charge me $45 an hour to assemble that information?
But concerned community members kept at it and gathered so much information about what they consider indiscretions by D'Onofrio and the board of directors, they made a website. Fleecing Park Taxpayers launches today with the idea that if the board of directors won't make information accessible to the public, they will. And some of it's not too flattering. Like the allegation that D'Onofrio's daughter was living in district housing reserved for park staff. I learned that after my interview with President Felguth, so I emailed her the question. She emailed back saying, quote, "You might want to check with Joe Spillane, the finance director. The board does not pry into the private lives of our employees' grown children." Unquote. And in our interview, Felguth vehemently defended D'Onofrio's raises. What were some of these things that he did that were so great?
Well, have you ever hiked Palo Corona Ranch? Have you ever hiked Mill Creek? Have you ever hiked Con Ranch? In his tenure, Joe brought in or helped us negotiate the acquisition of 12,000 additional acres. He also helped us with fundraising that brought in millions of dollars to the district that allowed us to go ahead and bring in these lands and make them available to the public.
But Baird and quite a few others don't care how good of a job D'Onofrio did. They say he was paid way too much, and the current board of directors are to blame.
This board should step aside. A new board has to step into place.
They want a resignation of the board. What would you say to that?
I would say that given our electoral process and the fact that we cycle in and out, they'll have a golden opportunity when we come up for re-election.
Well, tonight's debate was important for those undecided voters, so we wanted to find out how honest both Obama and Romney were with their answers.
We posed a question to you on Facebook. Were you wondering what was actually the truth during tonight's debate? And that is why Central Coast News reporter Marissa Pendergrass, she went digging for those answers in a series of fact checks. I mean, what a response.
The first question came from Nancy Riker-Judd, and she wanted us to find out, does Romney promote a cap on deductions?
All right, so what'd you find out? Well, you just saw the political coverage on the evening news. Tonight, Central Coast News' Campaign 2012 has set up a poll. Text your choice for president by texting the word poll to 28201.
The moment you walk into a voting booth this November, the timer will start. State law says you've got 10 minutes to get through the ballot. Take a look. Not only will you be voting for the presidential race, you'll also be voting for city and county races and measures, and not to mention all 11 statewide propositions, and some of you may have a hard time finishing it.
2, 3, 4, 21. That's less than 30 seconds per ballot item, people.
So, can the pressure and information overload impact the way you vote? Director of Behavioral Health, Dr. Wayne Clark, said studies show the overload often has a negative effect.
There's too much information, there's too many advertisements, there's too many conflicting sets of data.
Welcome back to the Central Coast News Center for Investigative Action Special, Funding California Education. Since 2008, $150 million in funding has been cut from Monterey County school districts. And come December 15th, schools may face another mid-year cut. Parent Tammy Suber is the mother of a 12-year-old, and on her local PTA, she's seen the impact of the cuts with her child.
She doesn't see the point of school anymore because it is literally I go to class, I sit, there is no fun. They sit, they learn, they sit, they learn.
But could the financial crisis be avoided in the future? Michael Kirst was appointed president of the State Board of Education in January, and for years he said the education finance system is long overdue for an overhaul.
You need to essentially throw out the past. You cannot fix what we have.
And what we have right now, teachers are calling a crisis. I'm Jazz, this is Mark.
Recently, we invited a group of educators to the Central Coast News studios. The goal of this discussion, to find out what teachers on the front line are dealing with every day as they manage through this funding crisis.
People don't realize that you have to almost have to walk in the shoes of a teacher to sort of see the challenges and the demands that we're facing.
The demands have never been higher on California teachers, especially in Monterey County, where budget cuts and increased class sizes make it increasingly difficult for teachers to do their job teaching your children.
I've had to start the entire year with 32 students by myself.
To make matters worse, the state is talking about reducing the school year by as much as 20 days. A move Governor Jerry Brown said could save nearly $1 billion per week. But it would also give teachers even less individual time with students.
All right, let's go to Prop 30. This is the other big granddaddy when it comes to propositions here in California. Governor Jerry Brown's tax initiative. We've been seeing some results in this one very close. I think last time I saw it was 52 no, 48 yes, again for Prop 30. If we can't pull up the numbers, and there they are again. The latest numbers that we have right now. Okay, at this hour, is this close enough for it to do a flip-flop?
Well, again, we're talking about a little over 17% precincts reporting statewide.
Yeah, this is not done yet, but it's not good, of course, for the supporters of this measure to see those kind of numbers. It might change over the night.
Prop 30, you agree and make it or break it for Jerry Brown?
Oh, Brown put a lot of his reputation, his historical reputation on the line for this, and a lot of other people did too, not just Brown.
Schools included.
This year, we did something different and made a commitment to cut through the spin and the clutter and give you a chance to hear from the candidates unedited on our website. We called it Candidate Statements, and now that the results are in, we're holding the winners accountable.
I'm going back to all of the candidates that won in November and submitted candidate statements on our website to check on how each will fulfill their top priorities. Today I sat down with incoming Salinas Mayor Joe Gunter, who says the city needs some work and he's here to make sure it gets done. Joe Gunter's top priorities focused on improving public safety, promoting new and retaining current businesses, and providing better public service. He's pushing for a new police building through the Alisal Marketplace, a 52-acre development in East Salinas. He also wants to add about 10 officers to the police force in the next year.
I think every year we need to move up that number because we need that number of officers. We've cut back on some of the services we used to provide.
Central Coast News has once again made the commitment to cut through the spin and the clutter and to give you a chance to hear from the candidates unedited and uninterrupted.
Well, we call it the Candidate Minutes.
Well, tonight, Campaign 2012 going in depth with 4 candidates vying for Monterey and Santa Cruz County supervisor races. As you watch, keep it in mind, each candidate gets 1 minute of time and they must focus on why you should vote for them and not negative comments about their opponents.
And to be fair, we are airing the candidates in alphabetical order.
My name is Mark Del Piero, and I'm running for the 5th supervisorial seat on the Monterey County Board of Supervisors. I'm a lifelong resident of Monterey County, and previously I served for 12 years on the Monterey County Board of Supervisors.
Hello, I'm Congressman Sam Farr. It's been a pleasure to represent you in the United States Congress, because I want your voice to be heard.
Hello, I'm Assemblymember Bill Manning. Hola, yo soy Assemblista Bill Manning. Quisiera decirle gracias por esta oportunidad.
Hola a todos, mi nombre es María Orozco, estoy corriendo para el Distrito Escolar del Valle de Pájaro.
Go to kcba.com and click Candidate Menon under Campaign 2012. So it was all about Campaign 2012 in the Question Center earlier tonight. Members from the Monterey County Department of Elections came in to answer your questions. They took your phone calls. They talked about the registration deadline, when you actually need to re-register, and the new look for the ballot this election. Now remember, the law says your registration must be postmarked 15 days before the election. In this case, it's October 22nd.
And tomorrow night, Central Coast News is teaming up with the Salinas Californian to host a local candidate forum. Our Central Coast News anchor, John Cabrant, will join the panel with questions for the Salinas city candidates, from the mayor's race to the city council candidates. The forum is 6 to 9 p.m. at the Steinbeck Center, and it will also be streamed on KIONrightnow.com. Campaign 2012 primary night is finally here, and we've got you covered up and down the Central Coast. I'm here in our Salinas newsroom.
And I'm down here in our Santa Maria newsroom tonight because some of tonight's races affect both areas because of redistricting. So let's get straight to some of the results so far.
Here's what the new district looks like. It includes all of San Luis Obispo County and Santa Cruz County, over 45% of Monterey County, and over 11% of Santa Clara County. Here's how it got that way. Redistricting happens every 10 years, but this time, for the first time, it was done by an independent citizen commission made up of 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats, and 4 independents. Districts were decided not by a balance of party affiliation, but by things like population and communities of interest.
Drive time for Ever Wins will be close to 4 hours from top to bottom of the district, but both candidates running say that there are things about the district that will unify it.
Agriculture, hospitality, tourism, those are the biggest employers. Higher education is strong throughout this region.
Now, there are big question marks surrounding the future of the Republican Party, especially here in California, now that the Democrats have a supermajority in Sacramento. Central Coast News reporter Dave Alley gives us a look at the grand old party to see where it's at now and where it might be heading in this Center for Investigative Action report.
We got whooped. No doubt about it. We got whooped big time.
After this month's election, it's time California Republicans talk about the elephant in the room.
The Republican Party somewhat on life support.
That's because Democrats now hold all top elected statewide positions and have just earned a supermajority in the legislature for the first time since 1883.
Our future is going to be pretty challenging, and we need to sit down and put our finger on the pulse of the problem before we say we're going to solve it.
The problem is the party is shrinking. Republicans now number under 30% of all registered voters in California. That's more than 10% less than Democrats and just barely above decline to state. To turn that around, the GOP must change.
We got to expand the tent. We got to expand the base.
Double dipping. If you live in California, you know I'm not referring to a cocktail party faux pas, but the hottest faux pas to hit Sacramento in recent years. You won't hear the California Public Employee Retirement System say double dipping. CalPERS calls it a retired annuitant. Doesn't sound as bad. In fact, your eyes probably glazed over as soon as I said it. This is what it means. A public employee retires and collects a pension on their highest salary earned, then goes back to work. If a retiree returns to work for a public employer not contracted with CalPERS or in the private sector, they can continue to collect their pension while working at the new job. But if someone returns to work for a CalPERS employer, they must suspend their pension. This is designed to prevent the double dip, but there are a few exceptions. Here's the first example. A retiree can come back to work for a CalPERS employer, still collect their pension, and get paid if they work less than 960 hours a year. In February, I introduced you to Terry Fow, who was a retired law enforcement officer. Fow went back to work for the Monterey County Sheriff's Office as a management analyst.
I'm double dipping is the term. And so for the 2 months or so that I work, I'm getting my retirement and a salary.
Fow worked at the sheriff's office for more than 2 months, but left before he went over the 960-hour limit, collecting $40,000 on top of his pension. A second loophole? A retiree can come back, work full-time for a CalPERS employer, and still collect their pension if they act as a contractor.
We only do it when there's a real business reason for the city
to use that tool.
I found out the city of Monterey has several retired employees on its payroll, including current police chief Tim Shelby. Shelby retired at the end of 2010 and receives a pension of $167,556 a year. In January of 2011, he signed a one-year contract for $170,472 to stay on as Monterey's police chief.
And because these people were experienced and know the system, know the organization, know the community, we chose to make that trade-off. Save some money, keep the expertise on board.
Monterey Assistant City Manager Fred Cohn said in Shelby's case, the city saved $80,000 in benefits and are using him to reorganize the police department. In the case of former Community Services Director Kay Russo, it saved the city even more. Cohn said Russo retired when the city merged 3 departments into one. The other department heads left, and she stayed on as a part-time employee to manage the transition. Russo kept her pension, the city didn't have to pay her benefits, and saved close to $40,000, paying her a part-time salary for close to 5 years.
The retirement is really about what has occurred in the past, and the rehire of that individual to do something is about some sort of business need we use and need going forward.
But critics say double dipping happens way too often. I even found a website that helps you double dip. EarlyRetirementPlan.com gives a step-by-step process on how to retire early and double dip your CalPERS pension.
And now one of your local lawmakers here in Sacramento is trying to stop the double dip for a second year in a row.
Santa Cruz Senator Joe Simidian said taxpayers deserve better.
When they pick up the newspaper, realize that somebody has retired with a pretty good pension, on a Friday they've walked out the door and then they come right back on Monday and start all over again, either as an employee or a contractor.
But according to CalPERS, it checks for fraud, and if it's done legally, there's nothing it can do.
It's really a decision between employees and their employers.
But Simidian disagrees.
Look, I don't fault anybody who takes advantage of the existing system. The system not only allows it, the system encourages it. Who's going to go home and tell their husband or their wife, honey, I deliberately left money on the table?
That's why Simidian said lawmakers need to take action.
We need to change the rules of the game.
Central Coast News' Campaign 2012 is all about helping you make that informed decision. And today we do have an instant debate right here in studio for one of the hottest races in Monterey County for the Board of Supervisors, District 1.
I've been a supervisor. I have a strong record of voting for health care, gang prevention, going back to Washington, D.C. for 20 years, fighting for seniors, securing 30 acres for soccer fields here in Salinas.
We have thousands and thousands of good kids in our neighborhoods, but they need access to where they can do their recreation activities. So I've concentrated on family. Family is very critical. When mom and dad get involved with their children, you have a better Monterey County.
Sergio, opening statement.
One of the biggest challenges facing our county is the loss of jobs, the continuous loss of jobs, the economy downturn, and people losing their homes, losing their cars, losing their livelihood.
Next question, this one from Matthew Maxey. He wants to know your ideas to get more water flowing for people on the Monterey Peninsula. And more importantly, who should own the desalination plan? Sergio, let's go back to you. You start this time, 45 seconds. On to Campaign 2012, former Greenfield Police Chief Joe Grebmeyer is running for City Council in King City. Things did not end smoothly in Greenfield for Grebmeyer, and we've been telling you about the bad blood brewing over a police merger with Soledad that ultimately cost Grebmeyer his job.
Well, now some are saying Grebmeyer is trying to stop a four-city police merger by running for City Council. Central Coast News anchor John K. Brent went to King City today and put that question to Grebmeyer in this Center for Investigative Action instant investigation.
People, obviously your opponents are going to say, well, he got pushed out at Greenfield and now he's coming down to King City to force his agenda. How do you respond to those people?
On camera?
On camera.
Not true. I've been living in King City for over 35 years. King City has been my community, active in the Greenfield community. I'm not sure what the agendas are in Greenfield now, but I know what the agenda is in King City.
Grebmeyer is running on support for public safety and freely admits he opposes the consolidation of the 4 South County police forces. So what's the fear, though?
Fear of?
Fear of consolidation.
Well, one of the fears I have with consolidation is loss of local control.
On a Campaign 2012, and I'm here in our election headquarters tonight as there's an election less than 2 weeks away. And there's a good chance you don't even know about it. That's why a lot of you call Carmel by the Sea's municipal election a waste of money, while others call it a tradition.
Well, we are our own little community, you know, and we have to do things different, of course. We wouldn't be Carmel if we did it the same as everybody else.
John Kavanaugh is one of the 2,700 registered voters for April's election. It's not exactly a packed ballot. 6 candidates battling for a total of 3 spots, the mayor's job and 2 city council seats.
I like it because I can pay more attention to these issues, and then I'll pay more attention to those other issues. It doesn't affect my voting behavior.
Carmel's the only city on the Central Coast holding a municipal election, separate from June's primary. It costs $26,000, translating to $15 to $20 a vote, compared to $4 for general elections. Both candidates for mayor say it's all about tradition.
I think that it's more than tradition. It ultimately gets candidates that are going to be more focused on what is best for Carmel.
I'm a lot about tradition. I think tradition, I'm as old-fashioned as you can get, but when something lessens the democratic process, I think that has to be reconsidered.
Now, we want to know if you are more likely to vote in an election specific to your city. Now you can text VOTE to 28201, again 28201. You can also go to KIONrightnow.com and say.
It is 652 pages long, and what it stacks up to is controversy.
The devil's in the details.
That's Monterey County District Attorney Dean Flippo, who says AB 109, Governor Jerry Brown's public safety realignment plan, has some serious flaws that could equal serious consequences.
This isn't generated at public safety. It's generated for budgetary reasons because the state is broke.
And critics like Flippo say what's going to be broken by AB 109 is communities. 2 parole agents came forward to Central Coast News to voice their worries from an insider's perspective. We've shielded their identities because they're afraid for their jobs.
Families need to know that it's basically unleashing a plague of offenders on the streets.
All members vote who desire to vote. The bill, which passed and got the vote of Central Coast Assemblyman Louis Alejo and Bill Monning, passes power down to the local level. It's sold as housing low-level offenders in jails instead of prisons, which cost more money. The fact it's expensive is true. On average, it costs about $46,000 a year to keep a prison inmate. It's estimated to cost half of that at the local level. Problem is, a lot of local jails, like the one in Monterey County, have no room.
Where are we going to put extra people, especially ones who should have been in state prison in the first place?
Flippo says it means criminals will end up getting released early.
You have to move out to make space for the others. There's going to be an increase in crime.
That is just a glimpse at some of the political issues Central Coast News has tackled for our viewers over the past 2 years.
We hope our viewers got as much out of the stories as we did.